No, you know one thing I love about podcasts is like when they get close to the microphone like this, it sounds so freaking sexy.
You're like, hello.
Hello, is it me?
Is it
You're
me?
looking for. I'm just like talking about something, whatever, and I'm like, all right.
Right,
Like,
governor.
right. It's like it's not a good accent, Gabby, okay?
Mine's worse. I'll start with like British and then I'm like fucking Australian. Crikey. Yeah, I can't.
Like, hey, we're rolling.
Ay, ese vasito que divino.
Me combina, chica, lo acabo de encontrar en la cocina.
Yo aquí con esta botella más ghetto. Destina, sponsor us.
Dasani. Thank You X is sponsored by Dasani. We're actually not. Dasani is no. Welcome back to Thank You X, friends and fam. We are so glad that you're joining us today. We have an amazing second episode for you called When Is It Time to Walk Away?
Yes. The question came up because we were talking and we were like, you know, when does it get unhealthy being a ride or die? Like, men are always like, I want a girl who's a ride or die and this and that. And like, when
and
does it get unhealthy?
We get it, like relationships take sacrifice, but when is it a sacrifice that you both are like kind of trying to achieve a same goal together, and when is it that you're sacrificing yourself? Because once you get to the point where you're sacrificing either your values or honestly, this sounds dramatic, but even your dignity or just like who you are as a person,
your integrity, like, yes, your values, your standards, you know, like things that sometimes we subconsciously like don't realize that we're doing. I think especially as women, because we're like caregivers and we always want to, you know, help people and esto y lo otro. Like, when does it get to a point?
For you, Vane. I have a question for you. You were in a relationship with Arahvik Luver for 7 years. Arahvik Luver, just for those who didn't catch our intro episode, Arahvik Luver is Vanessa's ex-boyfriend of 7 years. One of the half of the reason why we met. And when you dated him for 7 years. Within those 7 years, when did the aha moments? Vane and I like to call them aha moments, like, or how we say in Spanish, cuando te cae el 20, when you're like, uh-oh,
like, here we go.
Feel, something's up.
Yeah.
When was that for you? Because it's a 7-year relationship. Did you have those aha moments at the beginning? Like, how did that manifest for you?
So I think like it obviously took me multiple occurrences to walk away from a relationship that long, because before him, you know, I didn't believe in marriage. I didn't believe in love. I was like, my career is my love. And I never really thought like, ay, me voy a casar y quiero hijos y esto y lo otro. Like, no, like I never actually really like had those thoughts go through my mind. So this person was the first man in my life that kind of opened my mind and my heart to like, oh, I would like to get married. I would like to have kids. So for me to like actually process like, wow, this person is not going to be the person that I do that with was like really difficult for me. But I think like within the last 2 years of our relationship was kind of when like the lies started, the manipulation started. And it was kind of when I started, you know, opening up conversation with my family, with my close friends, with my girlfriends, with my guy friends, you know, and it was just like something like isn't right, you know, and like.
And can I just say, like, because you've told me stories about the beginning of your relationship with Arahvik Luver, and especially the age that you were so young. It was such a fairy tale. I mean, I can't even imagine how hard that is to let go of when the beginning of it is so sweet and tender and kind of like, I mean, I've never asked you if you felt like Arahvik Luver was your first love, but kind of like that excitement of, if not your first love, definitely one of your first loves.
Yeah. I think he was definitely, you know how they say like your first love, you're like young, you know, sé que, like, I think I had experienced love before Arahvik Luver, pero I think that this was like a real like serious love. Like it was like, wow, I see a future with this person. You know, like I was super close with his family. I still am. They're amazing people. Like, and he's an amazing guy too. But it was just kind of like, oh, this is different. You know, like this is, you know, we were best friends, that we did everything together, you know, and I think that is the hardest part of a breakup, is like getting out of that routine of like, te pasa algo exciting. And you're like, oh, I want to call so-and-so and tell them. And you're like, wait, like,
okay,
I can't. Like, I shouldn't, you know? And like that for me was like, I was breaking a routine, like a fucking drug addict, that like endorphin of like, oh, I'm excited. Guess what? I want to share it with you. Right. So that was like kind of a difficult thing for me, but
can you think of
definitely
like specific aha? Can you think of like, oh, this day we were at this place and this happened and I was like, aha moment. Can you
dude,
think
okay, so there was a moment when we were like being intimate or whatever. We might want to edit this out later, but we were being like
maybe not, girl. This is juicy stuff.
we were being like
you were getting hot and heavy. I mean, hello, you guys
yeah.
are together for 7 years. You're gonna get hot.
Bueno, y el man me dijo que like, why don't you put makeup on? Like, why don't you wear makeup? Like, you would look like you're so pretty and stuff, but like you're so beautiful with makeup, and it would make me feel special if you would wear makeup. I kind of was taken back, and I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, you're pretty and beautiful, but like it would just make me feel special if you would get like dressed up and wear makeup for me. It would make me feel special. And I'm like, I'm beautiful the way I am, like with or without makeup. So like that, no, like that didn't rub me the right way.
Yeah, that's
like the moment you have to, like, no, I was like, excuse me. No.
The thing is, I have to say, I've had situations like that. I had situations like that with Mr. Ravioli, plenty, as she sips the tea. No, I'm kidding. But I think, you know, our reaction, which your reaction was so great of like, excuse me, but there's a side of us that internalizes that rejects it, but at the same time goes, fuck, should I be wearing makeup? Am I not pretty enough? Who's he comparing me to? Why am I, you know?
Yeah, immediately.
Which again, we're not blaming anybody. That's also a lot of self-work that you have to do. But there is that aha moment of like, why did I not stand up for myself in that moment?
Or where I was just like, oh, like I had never seen, it was kind of like, oh, I haven't seen this side of this person before. Like, noted. You know, I was kind of like,
into the relationship, do you think? Like,
that was in the last 2 years. Like that happened within the last 2 years. And then like,
it's a vulnerable moment to be intimate with someone. You want to feel your most beautiful, whether you're wearing makeup or you look like a freaking slob, like you're being intimate. That's so much vulnerability.
And it just like made me question myself. And it was like, why? Like, why is this person who's supposed to be my biggest supporter making me feel less than I know that I am? And, you know, you go in your head and you internalize it and you're just like, as much as you tell yourself, like, I'm not going to let this get to me, you can't help but think about it, you know, like, so that was like,
that's where it also becomes like this game of like, that's part of the journey is like, okay, what in me is manifesting this kind of, what am I not accepting in myself that I'm like, again, it's not victim blaming, but just kind of like, what am I, what is in me that is manifesting this
lacking.
Yeah.
You know, I was going through like a career challenge and I was kind of questioning like, do I want to be in fashion for the rest of my life? Like since I was a little girl, I knew like fashion is my future, my career. I'm going to be dedicated to it. And that was kind of around the time where I was questioning like, do I actually see myself doing this? So I was already having like a little bit of like an identity, not crisis, because it wasn't really that dramatic, but I was questioning like myself already, you know, as like a professional. So like to have your personal life question at the same exact time was not good. Was not
how like something that you were already like projecting and having within yourself, and how that was started manifesting in your relationship. Not that it was your responsibility what he was saying, but it was a lot of, you know what I mean? It's funny that you say that. I actually, because I was going to share an aha moment with Mr. Ravioli, but which was completely different than yours. But you reminded me of my first aha moment, maybe our first argument. I had come back from a party that I had invited him to, but he couldn't go or wouldn't go or just didn't want to come. And I looked real cute. And he had told me like, oh yeah, you look cute, whatever. But I think we got to a point, we were watching TV and something was off. Like, I think he was kind of upset because he had called me while I was at the party and I hadn't answered because I was at a party. And he just kind of started digging and said something like about like, why don't you wear this? Why don't you wear that? And why don't you wear heels that much? And I was like, I do wear heels. And he's like, no, but like certain kind of heel, like just kind of started nitpicking at me. And I was, you know, obviously I'm a feisty one. So I was like, well then date a girl that wears the heels that you like.
Yeah.
To wear.
Or better yet, why don't you fucking wear them? Like,
or even like, there's even a better way of going about it. Like, hey, I would love to see you in these heels. Do you want me to get, like, here's some whatever. Like, there's so many.
Another way of saying it.
Another way of saying it. And it was a little bit of a aha moment for me because I had never experienced that with a man, but I can say that in a lot of experiences that I had with Mr. Ravioli, where that was the discussion of whether either how I looked or how I dressed, what was in me that I was manifesting that in a man, that a man wouldn't just completely absorb me and love me the exact way that I looked. And not that you can't have an opinion on what your significant other wears, but it just was a very bizarre way to go about it. And I think that was a huge red flag for me. For me, the biggest aha moment was Mr. Ravioli and I, because there were a lot of aha moments here and there. One of them being, I didn't like the way he spoke about women or referred to women at times. And even though he didn't understand it sometimes because he wasn't specifically referring to me, but I was like, okay, but that's women. Like, and he would talk about marriage a lot. So I would say like, shoot, like if I end up marrying a guy, we end up having kids. Like, I want a man who sees women a certain way. What if we have a daughter or whatever, even if we weren't to get married? It was just, that was a big moment for me. But the biggest, I think, was we pretty quickly moved in together. He wanted to move in pretty quickly, and I was extremely hesitant because I tend to have a fight or flight mode. But also just because I thought it was too soon, and I really cared for the relationship. I loved him deeply, and I wanted us to tread with care because I knew we were both big personalities and we needed to get to know each other more, and respect our differences more, right? Before like being tossed in. But with quarantine and everything, that accelerated, and I finally agreed. And that was a really rough move. Like, I felt very alone. I had lived with my roommate / sister now for like 9 years. That was like a really traumatic thing for me, even though I was moving in with this man that I loved, and we're from the same country. We come from the same city. So we have a lot of things in common and so many like little idiosyncrasies that I was like, oh, this is amazing. And it was such a challenge for me because I had told myself I was never going to date anyone from my home country ever again. And And
here you are living with him. And
you're like living with him. I couldn't even believe where I was, but in the most beautiful of ways too, right? Like, it's crazy how like you'll say something and then God laughs. You'll say this will never happen, and then he's like, here you go. Like life just has a funny way of teaching you things too. And I felt very alone. It was almost like I remember once we were having a conversation with his best friend and his best friend's fiance at the time, and I think she said like, wow, this is a huge move for you. You lived with your roommate for 9 years. You must be this, I can't even imagine what this is for you. And he was so like, get over it. Like, just get it done,
Like, and diminishing how you are feeling, basically.
It started, it was one of those things, which again, just showing me a piece of myself. I wasn't feeling heard or validated. And I think that was a huge thing. And we'll go into that and some of the reasons why we feel to walk away. I don't want to like tell all the stories at once, but I didn't feel heard or validated, which brought me to my biggest aha moment. In the middle of all the chaos of like moving in and whatnot, I decided to spend some time with my family because it was quarantine and I hadn't seen them in months. And I was having a rough time with Mr. Ravioli. And it had been Mother's Day and he hadn't wanted me to join him for Mother's Day, which probably a big red flag, but I was like, okay, I miss my family. I want to go see my family. Like, this is ridiculous. And I land in Miami, and the overwhelming feeling of just, I felt so grounded and safe and loved. That for me was the aha moment of there's something up, because I haven't felt, it was like a release. And you'll have those releases, and girls, just that you're out there, you can be in a relationship and have those releases all the time. And it doesn't mean that he's not meant for you, but it does mean like, okay, something needs to either be addressed or cut a cord, and that was a huge aha moment for me of, okay, whatever the status of a relation. And I knew that, I mean, we were having conflicts and it's normal. Like, we jumped into so many things so soon. So that was normal, but just the instinct. And that's the one thing that I'll say before we jump into some of the reasons why we feel to walk away. Ladies, gentlemen as well, your body knows. Listen to your body. When you have a twinge, when you land in a freaking place and you're literally, your whole body releases and you're like, oh my God, this is where I'm supposed to be. Listen to your body. It's telling you what you need to know.
if you're going to be with someone in your life, you don't want to leave them and feel drained. Like you should feel filled, you know? And like, I'm not saying that you need someone to feel fulfilled. I'm saying like, you don't need someone in your life that's going to drain you, that's going to make you feel less than what you are, than who you know, what you do. Like, no, 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 no. If you feel like shit after you leave a guy or a girl, that's not the person for you, honey.
And
As
it's
much as like they check the boxes,
yeah, no, like
amazing as the sex is, as amazing as the whatever, no sé
I
qué,
get it.
boda, whatever.
Well, and I
Like,
love once I was again talking to my friend Andrea, and I was like, he made me feel fill in the blank. I think it was like he made me feel like I wasn't enough. And she said, and I love that she said, she's like, did he make you feel that way, or did you already feel that way? Because when you feel beautiful and someone X persona X comes
yeah,
and tells you you're ugly, you literally laugh about it because you feel
yeah.
beautiful. You're like, oh, that's cute.
You're
Like,
like,
oh,
haha,
that's
funny.
really cool. You know, if
Yeah.
you feel ugly and someone says you're ugly, you're going to be obsessing about that one person who said you were ugly.
And you don't even know them.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
that's literally, it's a huge sign. It's not about them making you feel any way, because sometimes, you know, he would say to me, oh, you make me feel emasculated. And I was like, well, I can't really do that because you are masculine. Of course, my first reaction was like, oh my God, how am I doing that? Let me stop. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. What am I saying? What am I doing? Am I too strong? Am I too opinionated? Whatever. But then after a while, I thought about it and I was like, well, you can't really make anyone feel something that they're not already feeling. And
Yeah.
so that's why we're going to start with the reasons of why we feel to walk away, because yeah, we can blame the other person, and not to say that they don't have responsibility, but we are co-creators of our we are relationships. We are co-creators of our relationships and our lives. So it's like, okay, what did we bring into the situation that we could have taken more responsibility for at the time,
or been more aware of? And I think it's like being honest with yourself, you know, like you, like for me, like this was the perfect man in my eyes. This was the perfect man for my family. You know what I mean? All the boxes, like everything was amazing. And he's still a great guy, but it had to take something so severe for me to be like, oh shit, like I can love this person, but I might not end up with him. Like I might not start a family with him. Y eso fue como que like, fuck, I had never thought about that. Like that thought never went through my mind, you know?
Well, and we'll talk more about that also, about, you know, relationships that you make with someone's family, which I'm like, nosotras somos Latinas. We're Latinas on esa now.
Yeah.
So for me to meet a parents on like a second date is not a big deal. Like I'm like,
No,
not
I
a big,
love
not in a like dismissive way, but I'm like, cool, family. Like I love it.
it. Yeah, I love it.
But how do you say in Spanish, like cuando te encariñas, like that can be hard too, you know, like sometimes there were points in especially in my breakup where I didn't really even miss Mr. Ravioli for a while, but I missed his family.
Dude,
Like,
same.
yeah.
That's been the hardest part of my breakup, was letting go of the relationship that I had, like with his mom, with his, you know, grandmother. And but it's like kind of just separating that line, like, oh shit, like this might not be like, you know, my family in the future, and or I'm gonna have to let someone else into my life that has their family. And it's like that was hard to let go. Like their family was the hardest thing to let go.
Right. So we broke down, Vane and I like talked a little bit about like different reasons of why we feel to walk away.
Yeah.
The first one we talked about was, I know a lot of you ladies are going to hold on to this one. We hold on to what we think is someone's potential or the potential in a relationship. So you might be right. Every single human being has a potential. And especially if you're an empathic person, if you're someone who, you know, when you love someone, like I loved Mr. Ravioli deeply. So I was like, oh my God, this man, like he can turn into like the most amazing man, which is egoic, because it's like, well, who's to say that I know what's best for him and what can make him a great man, right? So let's just clarify with that. Like ain't nobody telling him, like he knows that's his journey. But also it is that kind of thing where like, wow, like I'm in love with this man and all the things he can be or is going to be, whatever. And the heart that he has and how that can grow him. And, you know, we're always right. There is always potential in a person, but I think there's two things about that, two little caveats. A, do they agree with that potential? Do they see that potential in themselves? Do they believe in their own potential? And B, you know, do they have the capability, do they have the tools, they have the emotional tools to actually achieve that potential? Because no matter how much we see it, it's not our journey. That's A. And then B, what is the potential that we see in the relationship? Which, of course, most relationships start as a frickin' fairy tale. So we're like, oh, this is what it's going to be for the rest of our
You're
time,
blinded by
right?
love. Yeah.
So we hold on because we're like, wait a minute, where did the relationship go? No, this is the relationship. And there's ways to find love in the relationship in the moment. But unfortunately, sometimes we're still holding on to that potential that we built, both the guy and the girl. We meet, romance starts, and we immediately project all our dreams on this one person. He's our savior. We're their damsel in distress, and we are perfection. And obviously, very soon that, or is sometimes not so soon, that image crumbles because no one's perfect.
Yeah. And I also feel like we as human beings try to fit people inside of a box that we want for our life. Like, does he, as women, we have a checklist. It's probably a little bit longer than men's, but, men also have their thing, que ellos necesitan, but like we try to fix or fit complex human beings inside this box. And like, that's not right. Like, we can't do that going into a relationship. Like, you need to be open and vulnerable enough to be like, this is the person who I have in front of me. This is the relationship we're going to have. This is what they want to do. No one's going to change unless they want to. If you can think about how hard it is for us or one person or yourself to change something, why do you think it's going to be easy for you to change something in someone else?
How about absorb the person that's in front of you? Because they are perfect exactly how they are. And I failed doing that many a time, I'm sure, with Mr. Ravioli. But I feel like, and it felt like to me, like he was projecting, okay, this is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a wife. This is what I need. Are you fulfilling these boxes? Okay, you're maybe not fulfilling this one. So I'm just going to force you kind of like to fit the mold that I want. And it's like, how about just look at what's in front of you? And I think if and when we do that, we're most likely going to find so much. And this goes both ways, like accepting the man just how he is. And if we can't, then that's the moment to walk away instead of trying to force something. What was the potential that you saw in Arahvik Luver? What did you hold on to that you can admit to yourself that you're like, I held on to that? Like, was it the romance phase at the beginning, or?
I think I held on to who he was in the beginning because it was the connection that I had with him. And I think like the more I started meeting more people and, it made me realize like connection is rare. Like, it's actually really rare to connect with someone on a mental level. And for someone to understand you is special. And I started realizing like, wow, this is rare. Like, what we had, past tense, had was amazing, was beautiful, was everything I ever wanted. I was, swept off my feet, todo. Pero like, I was so stuck in that past because I like wanted that person again, like I wanted us again. And 7 years, dude, you change. Like, you change, you adapt as a person. Like, change is the only constant thing in this life, like we're always like adapting to new languages. So I think for me, it was like I was holding on to who he was because like, imagínate, like, bueno, yeah, you meet someone new and you're like, oh, this person could be this. For me, it was like, this person was this. I know that he is this. Like, I've seen it before. I've experienced it before. I've been there. I've lived it. Like, why can't he be that still? Like, So that's hard because like we fall like, again, you meet someone new and you think like, they can be this, this, and that. That's your imagination. You don't know if they can be that.
Right.
For me, it was like, this person was this person was that, this, that, todo. Like, I had lived it. So it was like, for me to accept like, shit, this is not the same man I fell in love with was hard.
It's also hard because you're trying to control something that you can't, which is another.
Like, I was changing, obviously, like so was he.
And also control. You're gonna change.
You would want to change. And I think that's what like a goal of mine in a relationship now is like, I want someone that I can grow with, someone that I can adapt with, someone that isn't just like, bueno, like, you go on your journey, I'm gonna go on mine, like, see you at dinner. You're obviously gonna have discussions and you're gonna have disagreements. And I honestly think that that's healthy. Like, if you're not fighting, not
Absolutely.
fighting, but like if you're not having like discussions, then like one of you is lying.
100.
Like,
Well, I would tell this to Mr. Ravioli all the time. I was like, we're supposed to fight, because he was like, we're absolutely not fighting anymore. Like, this is not what. And I was like, no, I
this
want
is
to
normal.
fight.
This is fine. Yeah.
How you fight is important, because if you're able, it's an art, like, to be able to have an argument, have a discussion, have disagreements, and grow from it. Because there are only two options, at least for me, there are only two options that I see. From a fight, you either grow or you mutate. When you mutate, you bring up something that the other person already apologized for, but you bring it up 2 months later or a month, and you're like, whoa, I thought I already apologized for that. I'm sorry. Or you grow from it. And I think, a real testament to a relationship is learning how to fight.
We shouldn't use the word fight though, because I feel like that's so like violent. I feel
Yeah.
like it should be like
I think the only reason why I use
agreement.
it is because it's so taboo. So many
It
people are
is. Yeah.
against fight. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you fight for your rights,
Or they'll be like,
for love.
uh-huh.
You fight for human rights, for women's rights. So why not fight for your relationship? If you're a team, if you're a unit, ideally you're never fighting against each other. You're fighting for something.
Together. You let your guard down, like you see that person as not an enemy, as like that's your lover, that's your partner. Like, how can we come to an agreement? I think that's where like the true strength of a relationship is held.
Yeah. So the second reason Vane and I were talking about of why do we not walk away is we don't want to be proven wrong. I think that for me, I'm pretty I can be pretty prideful and pretty ego. Even at moments when I was in denial, which there were a few, I think the signs of me being in denial is that I didn't share very much about my relationship with anyone. I shared bits and pieces. I highly edited. And again, when I had that aha moment of landing in Miami,
Yeah.
I would have family members. I'd be like, "Oh my God, Mr. Ravioli, like, are you in love? Like, are you in love? Like, how's it going?" And my heart would just sink, because I just knew something was off and I had to learn. And I think when we first broke up, I was judging myself a lot. I was like, how did that even happen? Like, I knew I would, and there have been moments of anger where I've been angry because I didn't listen to my intuition. But I also, there was a part of me that was like, nah, girl, you got some stuff to learn, and this guy can show you a reflection of what you need to see in yourself.
Which is mature. That's a mature perspective to see it. Because you could play the blame game, like, it's all his fault, this, that.
Like,
Yeah.
what is that going to do for me?
Women like resort to that, but it's just that's immature,
And
like you have
I've had
to
moments.
know your own faults, like it
Yeah,
takes two,
too. And I've had my moments where I've been like, ugh, like, heated, and it's like, de qué me sirve?
Yeah.
Translation for English speakers, what does that do for me?
Mm-hmm.
De qué me sirve?
¿De qué?
But I actually have a question for you, the same question for you, Vanya. Like, what did you have outside voices that you wanted to prove right, or were you just trying to prove yourself right?
I mean, so like it was obviously like how I mentioned, like the last 2 years was kind of when, you know, I started to notice red flags or just things started to not be as great as it was the first 5 years. But, I would just always have like, I remember it came to a point where like I went to a family member and I was like, hey, like, I don't know what to do, da da da. Like, this is the way I feel. I think it was like I went home for Thanksgiving and like he didn't come with me. And that was kind of like, whoa, weird. Like, why is Arahvik Luver like not here? Que no sé qué. And I'm like, no, like I didn't even know what to say, like I didn't even know, like I didn't want to be like, oh, things are kind of rough, or like I didn't know. I kind of felt like, I don't know, there was like something in the back of my head that was like, shit, I don't want, it was like a front. Like, I don't want people to know that things aren't going great because then, everybody will, like everything will be exposed. And like,
That was
I don't
me.
know. So, like, I had a close family member and I had expressed to them, like, I'm dealing with this, and that. And they're like, okay, give me clear examples, because maybe it's just a projection of an insecurity you have from a childhood trauma or no sé qué, and like you're just projecting. And I gave like very valid points, like the one that I mentioned earlier about the whole makeup thing and this and that. And she told me, like, bueno, like relationships take sacrifice. Like, it's not always going to be perfect. No one is perfect. And I kind of was like, I understand that no one's perfect, but like I deserve to be happy. And I know the love that I give, so I want that same love in return.
And
Yeah.
I think for girls like us and Latinas, and we grow up really kind of taking on so much of the emotional baggage of the relationship and excusing men because, oh, men are not emotional, but they are. And unfortunately, in cultures where our boyfriends came from, emotion was not a priority for them.
I don't know. See, like I was gonna say my ex, but Arahvik Luver
Hey,
is like,
you can say
yeah,
it.
his mother was like super emotional and like spiritual and like understanding. And that's why, like, for me, I like never could really understand. I'm like, where is this side coming out of? Like, who is this person?
Because
And we
women
live,
have also such a different standard in our cultures for men.
yeah, yeah. But like, I think the situation in my case with this person was like, so like we live where like media kind of controls us, and
Okay.
it was the first time that like this guy had fucking social media and all this like outside attention from other women, where I think that was just like getting to his head, or I don't know, but the
Which, by the way,
person,
is going to be the name of another episode of ours, Instagram and what it does for our lives.
oh god. And I think like he was changing in a different direction than I was changing. Like we weren't aligned with our end goal, and like that was fine, like I was willing to accept it, but it took me a lot of time and a lot of painful moments for me to realize like this does not feel right. This is not fulfilling me as an individual. Like I actually feel less of a person when I'm with this person. Like this, I need to cut this off. But it was like you don't know what someone's going through behind closed doors, like, and that's just when it has to be like, how strong are you individually to walk away? Like you can be submissive and be there for your man and support him and accept him cheating, accept him this, accept him that, but like, are you happy? Like are you waking up with ambition, with hopes, with dreams? Like are you not?
The one thing that I will say is that we can stay in a relationship, absolutely. But are we also staying because we're so scared of the unknown? Am I ever going to find a guy that loves me this much?
Yeah.
Am I ever going to find a guy that I'm going to have this banter with or this conversation with? Am I ever going to find a guy whose family loves me as much?
That was like the big one for me.
Me too. I
You know
adore.
how they always say like, like, oh, your mother-in-law, like, no one ever gets along with your mother-in-law, like, ay, la suegra, like, da 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 da. The first day that I met his mom and we hugged, the very first moment, we hugged and we both started crying. Like, I
Oh,
am okay.
it's like so
And
intense.
very intense, but like beautiful. Like, I didn't have anybody. I lived in LA for 9 years. Like, I had no family there. I had literally, I was like on my own, just working and
Right.
studying. And so it was like they became my family, and like I remember my mom one time was visiting and we were at dinner and she told Arahvik Lover like, cuídamela, like take care of her, and he took that to heart. Like he was like, I'm your protector. Like I am here for you. Like this was in the beginning of the relationship. Like, and he was amazing, and he would have sacrifices, I would have sacrifices, but at the end of the day, like we were there for each other. Like he protected me in many ways, and my role, or the way that I viewed it, was like, I'm going to support you in everything and I want to build you up, like I want you to see your potential the way that I see it. And he became extremely successful. When we first started dating, he was
Oh, I
unemployed.
was like, girl, that has you written all over him. Like,
Girl, el man no tenía ni trabajo. Like he was unemployed when we first started dating. And I did not care. I was like, this
talk
man,
about fear, not only fear of the unknown, but fear of letting go of something that you've put so much work into.
yeah. And like I never realized how much I put into it until the end, where I like once
Right.
again put myself aside and helped him move for his promotion, sé qué. And I was like, damn, like,
I say something though
uh-huh. Okay.
about that because I really do agree with you. I mean, it's beautiful how much you supported him, but it's not a loss because in you helping him grow, you were growing yourself, and you're going to bring that into your next relationship, and it's just going to expand whatever man is lucky enough to end up with you, either permanently or just for your next relationship, in an astronomical way that would have never happened if you hadn't grown, if you hadn't helped Arahvik Luver grow so much, because he helped you grow, you know.
He did, yeah. I
And
think he
maybe
helped me
the
grow
woman
as
the next one.
especially, yeah. That's what I was gonna say as a woman. I mean, and I mentioned it in the first episode or the second, ni me acuerdo, yeah, but like, you know, he opened my heart and my mind to love and family. And like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't, I don't think I would have the same interest that I have today with, you know, my life partner. And I see it as more as like a partner, your companion. Like the lust is gonna fade, your looks are gonna fade, you're gonna be wrinkly, no sé qué, but like you need to have someone who is at the end of the day on your side and on your team
I
and
love
like will grow with you and individually.
But
Because
again, why do we not walk away? Because we don't know if we're going to find that in someone else. The fear,
it's
which is
hard.
now, and that's why I think the fact that our relationships ended at either around quarantine or during quarantine is such a beautiful thing, because there is no such thing as the known. There
Yeah.
is only the unknown. We just trick ourselves and tell ourselves that we know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, because I scheduled it, and da 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 da. And it's like, oh, really? Explain quarantine then. When is
Yeah.
quarantine ending? When is,
Right.
did you know? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you know that you were going to be in your home for months? You know what I mean? Or whatever. So for me, that was another thing when I would literally be scared. Like, how am I going to find, or a man who I, con que compagino, con que hago el clic,
You click.
right?
Uh-huh.
Am I going to find that? And I was like, well, why not? It's the unknown. And
Yeah.
as human beings, and especially as women, we are taught to be terrified of the unknown. This is safe. This is safe enough. He loves you enough. He respects you enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he respects you even more than enough, but just if again, it's about listening to your body. So I think fear of the unknown is a huge one.
That's a big one to like hold on to. Or
Yeah.
like you get to a certain age and you're like, shit, I'm reaching 30. You know, we have this like society that tells us that once you're older, you're not as attractive or you're not as valuable or you're not as
Right.
potential for another man. And like you keep thinking like, shit, well, what if I don't meet someone? Like, what if I'm too old? What if this? What if that?
Damn, what if? And what if everything ends up being beautiful? And what if
Exactly.
this guy
Yeah.
is a step for your next guy and just made your next guy even better, because you're savoring the relationship and you're in everything that you maybe would not have valued before, you are now valuing because of the relationship that you had before, of maybe something that wasn't fulfilling you then. For me, I remember it was like the huge commitment I had made. I had never made a commitment with someone about living with them.
Yes, especially
I had
after
Yeah, so it was like this huge, like,
years.
okay, I already made this decision, which was already an unknown. Now I can't make two. I can't walk away from this, because I emotionally invested so much in this.
Mhm.
Little did I know, like, the universe was just not going to allow that to happen.
Mhm.
It's going to be like, oh, you're afraid of the unknown? Well, then here it is.
Yeah. Welcome to the Black Abyss.
Honestly brings me to the fourth one that, Vane and I talked about, which was the savior complex, which I know for me, it was like, especially on my spiritual journey, which I don't mean to say spiritual journey, but it's like one of those sides of the spiritual journey when you're like, I am so elevated. I know where he's coming from. So
Mhm.
even though he's hurting the shit out of me, or like I'm just hurting, I understand where he's coming from. And even though that's a beautiful thing to have empathy and compassion for someone, and I still to this day do, like a
Mhm.
lot of the things I try to reframe them as, he was hurting. He was
Yeah.
hurting. Hurt people hurt people. That's what was it?
Yeah.
Well, hurt people hurt people. If you're in pain, you're going to want to cause pain. And so that was kind of my way of going about it. But it got to the point where I was like, damn, I know why you're hurting.
Yeah.
Like, or me thinking that I knew, right? I think I did have that savior complex of like, I
Like
know he's
help him.
hurting and I love him so much. I want him to be happy. I can help him. I can help him do that. And at the end of the day, no, I couldn't, because the only person I can make happy truly that I have control over is myself.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is a total projection of my own and what I'm assuming, but sometimes I feel like men and women, we go into a relationship and we go, this person is going to save me. This person is going to change me. I'm going to start feeling so much better about myself. I'm going to start, etcétera, 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 etcétera. Me va a cambiar la vida.
Yeah.
And I think men do that too with women. They go, okay, I'm going to settle
Yeah.
down with this girl and everything. All my insecurities, all my addictions, are just going to magically fade away without doing the work. And it's,
Hmm.
no, I can't do that for you. You have to do that for you. Um,
Yeah.
I
I
will
think,
hold space for you. That's a big thing.
yeah.
It's like people are like, I'm not a savior. It's like, no, but you can be there for that. And that's what I really tried to do is I try to hold space for him. At
Hmm.
times I even tried to like control, which I think was like the wrong thing of just being like, but you're suffering, not control him, but just like excuse him because he was suffering. So I was just like, well, if he's suffering, that's why he's causing pain, not because he wants to cause pain, which could be true, but it's still, I was hurting. And I think that was a whole lack of self-love was I wasn't validating how I was feeling because I had the savior complex on. So I was like, well, I'm in pain, but he's in pain and I get to understand that he's in pain. So I have to put up with it.
You were probably thinking also, I don't know, like I'm the closest person to him that can maybe get through to him. Like, when if I discovered this and we're so intimate, we're so close with each other, we share this, we share that, maybe I can have him realize what I realized. And you kind of take on that responsibility of like, bueno, like I don't know, like we're selective people, and like if you let people into your life, then he's letting me into his life. Maybe I'm supposed to be in his life so that I can teach him a lesson. Or
I do think it's like what you said. I felt so lucky to be with him because his heart was so beautiful.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I could see that.
Hmm.
And so when I saw him in pain, I hurted. I hurted. I hurt for him.
Yeah.
I hurted you guys. I hurt for him. I was in pain with him. And at times I would excuse his behavior
Hmm.
because I
Because
was
you think like, yeah, and also like we kind of said it before, like love, we think love is going to save us, like ourselves, but within thinking that, we also think that our love can save someone else.
Mhm.
Like it's also like, bueno, if I love him more, then maybe he'll esto. If I give him more of this, then maybe that. But it's
That
like,
isn't even really love, right? Because to love is in its purest form is you just give it and whatever happens happens, but it's
yeah,
the joy of giving that love, right?
it's organic. It has to be natural. It can't come from like, if I give this, I want this in return.
So, I mean, we could talk about spiritual ego all day, how like women, we think we're the saviors. That's all great. But one of the things that like Matt Kahn says that I love is there is no such thing as spiritual growth in an environment that's toxic or where there is abuse. And not to say that like, oh, these men were, we're not even saying that. Like a child can be abusive when they're throwing a tantrum. If
Mm.
they're like, what you need to give that person is space or walk away. But there is no growth if there is if abuse and toxicity or unhealthy lack of respect is present. I mean, we could go on forever, Vane, about like reasons of
I
why we
know.
don't walk away, but I think what we want to kind of capture in this episode and kind of entice y'all to continue our episodes is we're actually going to go, let's talk about self-love.
Mm.
Let's talk about validating ourselves. Let's talk about all those things where, yeah, we can talk a million years about the reasons why we don't walk away, but how about let's also talk about what makes it easier to walk away of relationships that don't suit us, but even more importantly, what makes it easier to have an amazing relationship with ourselves?
I mean, it doesn't have to always be like you go into a relationship with someone else, like maybe that relationship is with yourself, with your career, with, your
Yeah, I
family.
don't think it's anything about like I do think that I've taken the lessons and been like, okay, this is going to be a solid foundation for my next relationship. But I'm definitely like, what it really has turned into is falling in love with myself and truly, because I
Yeah.
loved myself before, but I think now it's like I only loved my light parts, my good
Mhm.
parts. I'm learning to love my shadow. I'm learning
Good.
to love the stuff that he showed me because who you are in a relationship with is a reflection of you. Everything you hate about that dude, and we'll talk about it in another episode, but everything you hate about that dude is an aspect that you have in yourself that you haven't addressed, a shadow self, right? So I think for
Yeah.
me, it was scary. And what I will always thank Mr. Ravioli is thank you for teaching me how to I can't even think it is thanks to him, but it's thanks to our relationship
Hmm.
that taught me the importance of falling in love with myself, truly. The
But
good
if you didn't have the emotional knowledge, like emotional intelligence to realize that, then you wouldn't be like where you are now.
I mean, there were so many breakups that I had that I would just, because it's funny how like when women break up, men just kind of smell that. They're like animals. It's like, hey, you want to go out?
None of the
And so
fucking woodworks.
I was exactly, they come out of the freaking woodworks. It's insane.
You suck
The breakup. And I think they can just smell the vulnerability, right? Like as animals, we like smell it when we're like, and I would fall into, yeah, no, really. And I would like, I would fall into the whole like, okay, well, my ex didn't validate me. So let all these men validate me.
Yeah.
So empty. And this time I literally was like, no, I really need to get to learn myself and know how to validate myself. Otherwise, and it's again, and I'll end with this. Why I was like, I want to share this information with people is because when I was in the middle of sobbing, my friend goes, we can go down this route, or we can use this as an opportunity to expand, to grow, to ascend, and elevate ourselves. We can tell everybody until kingdom come, oh, I don't want I want a guy that's fill in the blank. You want a guy that's fill in the blank? Be that person yourself.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because then guess what? You won't need a guy. That is that. He'll just be an addition to your life.
And I think we should clarify, like, it's not just about your career. Because I think for me, like, I would go, like, anytime there was an issue, I was like, okay, well, I just need to be successful and I'll be happy, and like, I would just immerse myself into work. And that was like my way of distracting myself and my way of getting validation. Because I would be like, bueno, estoy ocupada, I'm busy, people need me at work. So it's like, this is making me feel better. And with quarantine, I got laid off. I worked in fashion and my manufacturer was in China. So everything shut down and I got let go. And that was when it was like, fuck, shit, my bad. That's when I was like, oh, snap. Like, I can't immerse myself into work. Like, I don't have anything really to like work on. So it was like, okay, I need to focus solely on myself. So ladies, gentlemen, everyone who's listening out there, this is your sign to love yourself. Stop with the fear. If you like to walk away, it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else but you. So just listen to yourself and listen to your body.
Oh, I love that. Listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you for our next episode. We can't wait for what's coming in store. Everything.
Don't forget to hit subscribe, okay?
Don't forget, you guys, suscríbanse.
Pon un little corazoncito, un thumbs up, whatever the hell you guys need to do.
Whatever, lo que sea que es lo que se usa.
Lo que sea, show some love. We love you.
Show some love. Until next time. Love you guys.
Ciao.